Sound check. Can I hear myself? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another stream. Today, we're gonna work on some CSS shenanigans. We're gonna look at. Somebody asked me earlier, can we make a circle-based navigation? So think, they were looking at their watch, and think the little circle round navigation thing you have on your watch. Could we make that on the web and responsive and only with CSS? Because why not? Let's make it hard on ourselves. So I'm like, I don't know. Let's give it a go. So yeah, we're gonna see if we can make that work and see how that pans out. So I'm gonna switch over to, I have a dumb project. It has absolutely nothing in it. It has a simple live reload and a dumb HTML page and a dumb CSS page. That is literally it. If we look at the output is white. So let's already start by not making our output white so that we don't burn our retinas, shall we? And that'll check to make sure that this whole gimmick is set up correctly and actually working, because, you know, such is life. So we're gonna say, let's do this correctly, shall we? We're gonna do background. We're gonna give it a color. I'm gonna do this, and then we're gonna go pick a color. We're not actually gonna leave it blue. I'm not a monster. Let's do kind of feeling. Let's play with. Actually, let's do. Yeah, that's pretty. I like that. That's a pretty color. Let's do. Let's have fun with this, shall we? And then let's do our font, our normal text color, text color. We're gonna do a simple white. Oops. And then we're gonna do we're gonna do padding 0, margin 0, so we can go edge to edge. And same with our, same with our body. Padding 0, margin 0. And then we're gonna go ahead and give it a background color of our background. And our text color, or color, right, of our text color. That should already be substantially better on the output. Let me see if I can't make this. There we go. Much, much, much better. We can even go a little bit darker on this, I think. Not that that's the whole point of this stream, but you know, let's, yeah. All right. And that worked beautifully. Okay. So we now have a background color. Super. Let's create that nav that we're going to turn into an arc or circle or something. So let's create a nav. So I'm going to use the nav tag and UL and LI, and let's put things in our nav. Let's make links in our nav. They're going to go to nowhere, but let's go make links in our nav. So let's do I don't know, what are some fun things? Give me some ideas. href equals something, and then we're going to make that home. And we're going to make that the moon. Let's do planets since we're going in circles. Let's do the Earth. That's what is it? Mercury, Mars, Earth, Jupiter. If you're doing circles, I think you should do planets or pizzas or tires or something like that. Yep. Jupiter. Who if I get Saturn? Neptune. One, two, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm missing some. I'm not a. I'm. Don't at me. Pluto's coming on here. I don't care. I know it's not heck. It's a dwarf planet. We're not gonna discriminate. So Pluto is gonna be on here. What else do we have? Mercury, Mars, Earth, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune. We forgot Uranus. Can't forget that one. Jokes write themselves. If I put them in order, it might help me remember them all. Like planets in order. Mercury, Venus. That is not in order. What is the order of the 9 planets? Mercury, Venus. Venus is not. Venus is second? No. Solar system planets order and formation. Starting from the near sun and working towards Mercury. Oh, I guess Venus is second. I don't even have Venus on here. That would explain a lot. Venus. Venus, Earth, Mars. Did I put Mars on here? Yeah, Mars. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and possible 9th planet Pluto. Okay, we're good. We have our planets. So now we gotta style these planets. Mercury, Venus, Earth. We're the 3rd rock from the sun. LOL. Yeah. Astronomy, not, or astrology by that matter, but not, was never my forte for some reason. Although I do thoroughly enjoy like the Hubble, all the Hubble things and constellation things, and but apparently solar system I skipped right over. Okay, so we have links, and our links are not particularly showing up contrast wise, so, and we probably want to make these, we're going to make our planets circle something. So we're going to put so our nav UL is going to be the style type none, probably. And then we're going to give it a, for now, I may rethink that theory later, padding 0. We're going to give our body some padding though. Let's do 3 rem for now. Good enough. And then we need to make them actually visible. So we're going to say that we want our nav anchor tags where link, actually we'll just do any link. That works. Any link. That includes both visited, both link and visited. Color. Color. Okay. And we're going to take that underline off. Actually, that white is really, really white. We're going to back off of that just a hair. Do RGB, and we're going to give it like a 0.98 or something. Not as aggressive, maybe 96. All right, I guess if I add the 8, it helps. Better. What about 86? Better. Okay. Then we're going to do a text decoration. No. All right. So we now have our planets that we now need to make into circles. Now to make these into circles, we have to account for, like if I just give them, let's do a border solid 1px. Let's just do it same as the text color for now. We'll give it, actually we'll create a border color. Border. And then let's do, it's like yellow. Oh, that is a yellow, all right. Let's pick a slightly different yellow. Let's do like something warm-ish. It's a little, there you go, something like that. That's nice. That's much nicer. Bar border. If I do that, and then I go ahead and let's give everything some padding. And then I give it a border radius of 50%. We end up with some very interesting situations. So that is because our links are inline elements. So we can deal with the overlap by doing a display inline block, for example. That handles, they're still inline elements, but at least now they handle they handle the aspect of not at least overlapping against one another. Now we still have the problem that Jupiter is kind of, and Mercury and Neptune especially, are kind of more oval than circular. Now I know no planet is exactly circular, but for the purpose of this exercise we probably want them to be circles. Now what I haven't done is given, it's giving me these in a sans serif by default, but I haven't really told it to be sans serif, so we're going to do that, and so that it kind of behaves the same across browsers. So I'm going to say that my type, my font family is going to be by default a sans serif. Now that does not guarantee what, depending on your operating system, your settings, and a slew of other things, that's not going to guarantee the type. So if I set a height and width that is not based on my type size, we're going to have some problems. So one of the things I can do is at this point possibly we have 9 planets. So if we think about this in a circle, how do I want to lay them out? Because that was going to affect how I want to do my height and my width. Now if I do a 9x9 grid, no, 9x9 grid doesn't make sense. A 3x3 grid, I'm short a planet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because in a 9x9, the 9th one is in the middle, which is mildly problematic because it's not necessarily the one, like we want the sun in the middle, but we don't have the sun in our planet list because it's a star. How do we want to make these circular? What I can do is my one with the largest number of letters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what I could do is something along the lines of height is 8ch. Now we do have padding in here, so we'll have to account for that. And width is the same idea. Now I did that based on the number of letters in, because the ch is going to take the 0 from that, the 0 or the O, I'd have to double check, from the specific typeface that you're using and calculate based on that. So at least the proportions, unless you have something where your proportion of letters is a little off, it should be pretty close. But now we still have, that is massively overblown for no apparent reason. We can get rid of the padding. And part of this is I didn't do my usual, and I'm going to, because otherwise I will forget this. Box sizing border box. Thank you. Because I want my padding to subtract from the available size, not to increase the size of my thing. So now if I were to add the padding back, we'll see that our circles no longer increase, and they do increase in size. They do increase in size. Interesting. Okay. Box. Oh, because I didn't border box. Now, if I add the padding back in, they shouldn't increase in size. There we go. Now, I do want my words in the middle, right? So I'm going to do a display flex, justify content center, align item center. So now I have them in the middle, and they all fit exactly, but I want some wiggle room, right? I said my longest one was 8. So let's go ahead and do 10. So now I have equally matched circles. They're all the same size, and they are, even if I change my font, let's say I change this to, let's say, serif, this should still work. The circles increase in size accordingly. Everything is still beautiful. If I say cursive, will that work? I don't know if I have cursive. Yeah, no, I don't. If I do monospace, everything still just works. I kind of like this in monospace. I think we're going to keep it in monospace. If we're going to be nerdy, might as well be nerdy. But this absolutely still works. Now we need to lay them out in a curve. Now, the thing about a watch, and the comment came by looking at the layout of a watch, is that the screen size never changes, right? And in our case, because we're on the web, our screen size is going to change. So we need to be able to account for the responsiveness. But I think the first thing we need to do is set this on a curve. And so, yeah, that's a fun one. I'm not sure. I mean, I know how to, with SVGs, you can set it's I mean, either way. Hey, happy Monday. How's it going? To set things, let's see if there's already a solved solution, because I'm not thinking of any at the moment. Elements. I'm curious as to how other people have done this on a curve. Yes. Going good, but Docker sucks. Oh, you're fighting with the whale, huh? Drawing curves, no. Curved edges, no. Rounded corners, no. Placing items on a circle. Ooh. CSS Tricks actually has an article about this. Possession relative, circle size, item size, angle, finish item count, rotation. Interesting. Now they've done this using Sass in CSS. We're in CSS, so I don't quite have the same situation, because we'd have to write these individually. But essentially what they're doing is they're doing a position absolute. Interesting. Width is item size, height is item size. Fighting with the whale, I think most of the hold on. I need to blow up my phone. I got a new screen for here and I'm not quite used to it. There we go. Depending with I think most of the issues are due to how they set up the containers. Many times it throws errors that cause full container removal and recreate. Ew, that does not sound pleasant at all. At all, at all, at all. Yeah, no, that really doesn't. Ew, no. At least it is just local dev and the actual deploys work well. Oh, that's good at least. It's still weird that like if you can't repro the same things in dev and in prod, it always makes me a little weary, right? Like if you're getting different behaviors in one versus the other, I always have to question why. But I guess in DevOps it's maybe not as uncommon. I don't know. I don't play with the whale. I don't I I do pre-made, even in my pipelines, I'll use whatever the defaults are that are, come out of the box. Okay, so, and the cool thing with this actually, since they are doing the rotation, they're doing a transform with a rotate and a translate. So technically, when we go to rotate our element around the circle, we should be able to do something similar. So when we should be able to get that, because then we can use maybe a Bezier curve to have the animation rotate instead of doing, because if we do a straight animation, it'll just go in a straight line, but then we can have it rotate. The out of the box, she means the container you've built. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's very true. It is the container you built. Once upon a time, I think we used the default out of the box one though. What are you working on? Basically we're trying to put the planets in a circle, and you know the dials where you have like on a watch. We're basically trying to figure out how we could reproduce that in a responsive way on the web. Because why not? Because on a watch you always know the size of your dial, which makes things a lot easier. But let's say if I wanted to draw a curve from like the top, like along the edge, and have my, and let's say right now I'm showing all of my planets, right? But let's say I have a smaller situation with my screen. So let's say I have it here where I actually have a scroll. Now I want to bring it so that all of the planets kind of curve correctly and show up and make a curve for the height that they are supposed to take inside. And I think that we might have to resort to some JavaScript for this because of the height of the container and getting to that container height. Because container queries are not going to quite get us there because of having to actually do math on that width. Yeah, I mean, this is, and literally this was just I don't know what I want to do for stream, and then that was brought up, and now I'm like, I wonder. So let's switch over to some JS really quick to figure out how, because positioning them in a circle is fine and in a static way is fine, but is only like 10% of the problem, right? And if we do something static, we're going to have some problems in terms of calculating our curve. So what we essentially want to do is know how tall the height of our container is. So we're going to need to know of that nav. So I'm going to give it an ID just because this will make the JavaScript easier. I'm going to give it an ID of my nav. And I'm actually going to do that on the nav itself, especially if I'm going to call it my nav. My nav. So if I do a get element by ID, my nav, const nav equals, and then I do a console.log nav. I may need to put this on an onload or something. You're gonna inspect that. We're gonna put that down here. We're gonna go to the console, and we do not have a my nav because I do in fact probably need to put that in some kind of onload. So let's do that. If I can remember how to do an onload. If I remember correctly, it is something along those lines. And we can even to really bring this back, you use a strict to really bring us back in the day. And now we have we still don't have a loaded. Why? We don't need to preserve the log. Thanks. Because we don't have a script tag. That would, yeah. Oops. How about now? Oh, look at that. Get element ID not defined. Yeah, it wouldn't be. Document that. Get element ID might help. It's just a hair. Nav. I'm batting 1,000 today. Hey, look at that. We have loaded in the nav. Miracles. Okay, so now that we have loaded in the nav, what we need to do is figure out how many elements are in our nav. So we know inside of our nav we have a UL and an LI, right? So I'm going to want to find my list and the quantity of my list items. So my list is going to end up equaling nav query selector UL, and then for my list items we're going to want to do or for my individual pieces, right, li list items is going to be nav query selector all li. Now the thing with those is that it's sort of a list, so they're not in this case, so I'm going to do an array from. And now I can actually manipulate it like a normal array once I've done that. And so now if I do, I can, for example, I will know that I have console.log. There are, do it this way. There are list items .length in my list. And the answer should be 9 because we did include Pluto. Yay! There are 9 items in my list. 9 planets in my list. There we go. So now that we know that we have 9 planets in our list, we need to figure out how tall our list is right now, or how tall each we kind of know how tall they are, but they're based on the font resolution and font size and whatnot. So we need to figure out how tall that li actually is so that we can figure out how we're going to put them up and how tall our screen is to figure out what we're going to do in terms of our curve and what's the minimal amount of curvature we want to have, right? So if we do, so we're going to need to know, one, what arc do we want to follow? And then are they all going to fit on the arc or not? And then what are we going to do with that trail, right? And how do we make it follow that arc as we scroll? So I think to play this game, we almost have to have Because if we do have enough room, we want more space. If we don't have enough room, we want them dropping off and pretending like they're circling off our edge, right? Actually, we can always pretend they're circling off our edge, even if we do have enough room. The question is, if we have... Actually, we can simplify this. Because if we set it on a circle, we just need to know how big of a circle do we need to create, right? But it would probably be a poor user experience to have... Actually, no, we do want them on the curve as much as we can. Because it would be dumb to not have all 9 planets visible if you can have them visible and have people have to rotate through the thing, right? So we want to optimize for showing as many on the screen. So if I were to draw, like, let me draw a circle on this screen. So this circle, right, which we just created this div, let's draw to kind of envision the arc. So if I were to do... I smell trigonometry in my future very, very soon. Whether we do it in CSS or in JavaScript, I still smell trigonometry. I hope it doesn't come to that. Dot circle is going to end up being, let's give it a border solid 1px var. Let's make it a different color just for the... Let's make it red. Stereotypical CSS console log. Let's make it red. And then I'm going to give it a height of 100% or 100 view height, because the height is really the concern. And the width of 100% view height. And so that, and a border radius of 50%. And then we're going to position in absolute. And there, that's going to do, and we're going to put it at top 0, left 0. So we have a circle, right? But what we don't want to do is have, what we want to do is have that arc, or have stuff follow the arc. Actually, instead of 0 and 100, we're going to do calc, because remember we put padding over here on our body, right? So we want to account for the padding on the body. So I'm going to make that a CSS variable, CSS custom property, body padding. That way we can use it later for the purposes of calculations and whatnot. So if I do that, just so y'all know, I have no clue where this is going. And then, why did this go away? Oh, because yeah. So we're going to do a calc. 100 view height minus var body padding times 2. Because it's at the top and at the bottom, right? And left and right. And same for our width. Because you've got the sides. So it's going to be that times 2. Alright. Where did we... Oh, and then our positioning is going to be at body padding. Because we want that to follow the padding as well. Okay, so now we have our circle that is based upon our actual usable area on the screen, right? But now we don't actually want to set our planets on that circle in this way. What we want to do is bring the circle over. So instead of left, we're going to say maybe minus calc. It's going to be let's say 75% plus body potting, padding, blah, 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 body padding. And then times -1 because we want to go backwards. Ooh, I was thinking, do I not know my right from my left? No, this all needs to be because of order of operation? No. Why are we left? Times -1. All that times -1. There we go. Okay, not quite 75%. Let's do 25%. Nope. 50? Okay. So this is all fun and games. We'd actually probably in this case not care about the top and bottom. Actually, even if we do say our usable area for text, our usable area ends up being, I did padding on it, didn't I? Yeah, I did padding. Let's do margin. I have my reasons. They're not good, but they're lazy. Because if I do margin instead of padding over here, what I can do is just to kind of show our usable area. That's kind of where we're at. So we would want that arc to fall right at the point, at the corners of the square. In order to have that, regardless of how big or how small we are, we're gonna want interesting. We're gonna want to hide the overflow. Yeah. Because this way it becomes a problematic because you run out of room, right? So if I play this game. This way we run out of usable space and we get weird overflow, right? So we'll have to handle this and see how using a dumb percentage isn't going to do what we need to do on either count, really. Because there will eventually be a sweet spot where it is in fact 75%, but it's going to be a hot minute before we get there. So if I say 50, it's going to be a real hot minute before and even if I line up here, I don't line up at the top. So what we need is for a circle that will have at one point in their arc, however we decide however much of the arc we want to show, right? Based on, we want to determine, we want to get the arc to fit here. And so we may have to play with either how far in we are or, interesting. So this needs to be the same height as the body. So if I do, see, it needs to stay the same size as the body and as the content. Well, no, this is actually correct. It's its positioning that's not working. Because if I change my positioning, let's say I don't say left. If I don't offset it, what I need to do, and technically speaking, we're gonna hit exact, why is my circle bigger than my body? Because it overlaps. That's right. So we would want the 50% mark. To get that curve, we want the 50% mark at here. So we want it negative 50%. So if I do left, in height, it's my body, right? No, I want my body. Body isn't doing what I wanted to. Body is going to have a min height of 100 view height minus our padding top, or minus our margin times 2. Calc minus our margin times 2. Min height calc. Margin. Var margin. Let's actually call that correctly. Except I called it padding. Body padding is what I actually called it. Even though I'm using it as a margin. Shh! Don't tell anyone. Alright, so now we have a body that is behaving as it should. And the blue missing at the bottom is simply from yeah, we're good there. Okay. Is the overlays doing that or the so now what we need to do is essentially move regardless of starting to think we need a container. So JavaScript on any given Tuesday, unless you get into three-dimensional plane, old Euclidean should do. I think part of the issue is that the window isn't a square. Rectangling the circle is just harder than squaring it. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the thing. Like I was thinking about most watches that have circular dials, right? The circular dial makes it easy because most of them know the height and width of the watch and can artificially conflate to a square. Even if the watch isn't quite square, we can artificially conflate to that. In this use case, we could, right? If we could we make this could we make the area we're dealing with forcibly a square? Possibly, because we can probably use. Did CSS already implement min max or clamp? We won't want clamp because clamp would take the middle. But did CSS already implement min max? Min max CSS or min? Because we would want the smaller of the two. Actually, we wouldn't want min max. We want min, and min has been implemented and is now widely available. Beautiful. Okay, we're on to something. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. If we do that, then we can artificially make our container a square regardless of where we're at, rectangularly this way or rectangularly this way or rectangularly this way, because we can handle. So instead of dealing with body here, let's we're gonna need a container eventually for. I mean, we have a built-in container for our nav. It's called nav. Let's do that. So let's see if we move some of this logic over to figure out this math. This would be interesting. Okay. If our nav height, our nav has a height, that would be really awkward though, because if I do something like this, then our knive's height ends up being over here. That's fugly. We want the bigger one of the two. Yes, we want the bigger one of the two. Height, because that'll be more aesthetic. The math will be a little bit more interesting, but it'll be a lot more aesthetic, I think. So if we do a height of max 100, view height 100, view width, and a width, same idea. Now we end up in a situation where, actually, let's give the border, that border we'd given the body. We don't need this anymore for right now for our body. Go away. We want the, there it is. Boop. Boop. So now essentially if we have a perfect square, and I decrease the percentage view on this. No. I think this went haywire somewhere. I think it's zoomed in ways it's not supposed to be. So now if we have, we're artificially conflating for the bigger of the two. And if we have a perfect, oh, I forgot to take out the minus the, okay. So I'm gonna say var square equals syntax square is going to end up being the min max of that. Or that we're just gonna call this our side. It's gonna be the min max of that minus the padding that with the margin that we have around, or the padding that we have on the body, which I could ignore for the purpose of figuring this out, but at some point you're never going to stick something on the edge and you're going to have to account for your padding, so I might as well just do it from the get-go. We're going to do a calc, and we're going to do the max of the two values minus the var body padding times 2. So we still need that. And that's what we're going to use as our height. Okay, where are we at? So now if we have a perfect square, I forgot a semicolon. That's why we're not doing one. There we go. There we go. So now it's going to be significantly taller, right? Which is fine. But now we're at least adjusting for whichever one is taller. So we should still be able to get a decent arc and account for no, we want to keep the height is what's important. It's all about, no, because if you go too far out on your arc and you're too narrow, like this would be a terrible situation to try to solve unless you had a very flat arc. Because you could fit a lot of them, but the arc would be very flat. Because if you, and in a situation like this, then you're constrained, you're fine. So it's something that would not work great on a tall, narrow. Could we, would this be a simpler solution to solve this way? Not really. Although it would be more aesthetic aesthetic, I guess it doesn't matter whether you're doing it to the side or doing it to the top. Your choices are to show less, right? And you're going to show more of this of your curve. Or you're going to, but at least it'll be in the middle. So that works. Okay. So actually, no, we're doing okay. So now we need to know our circle. If I actually make this vaguely not square, but enough so that we can see our edges. We want our circle. Oh, because our circle is still tied to our body. That's why. I'm going to put the circle inside the nav. And then we're going to give it the nav a position relative so that the circle can absolute to the nav. And then we're going to position the circle to the nav, which is fine. But then we no longer need to do this. We can just say, I think we can just go with 100% at that point because we've got the container. Now we're going to want to do the same thing we did with the, we're going to want to use side. And so I'm going to move side up here with our other calculations with that body padding. And our side is going to end up being our height and our width for our circle. As well. Now, where they lie. Oh, I haven't saved this. There we go. And now we do not need this. It just needs the top and left 0. And that will eventually change because we need to offset it. Okay, cool. So now our circle fits. It inscribes correctly. Let me refresh this because it doesn't seem to. There we go. It inscribes itself correctly in the available space. But now let's say you wanted to scroll this, you would want it. No, you still want it to match the bloody height. We still need to match the bloody height, not the width. If I were to do it at the top, like hanging down, which actually would be really cute, then yeah, we can deal with the width. But no, we want the height. We want to match the height. Do we though? Now I'm second guessing myself. Now I'm seriously second guessing myself. Yeah, let's go back to just the height. We go for just the height. And we do cool. Now we need to make sure that that circle is 50% to the left. So left equals negative 50%. Now we have it beautifully aligning to where we need it to be. Now we need to position our little moons and our little planets on the circle. The issue is, like, in this use case, we're not going to have enough room for all of them. We're only going to be able to fit so many. And there, we're not going to be, there we could fit them all, but here we're only going to be able to fit so many. So we know, we're going to be able to know we need the distance of the curve. Now, if our curve, if we get too tall, our curve is going to end up being substantially overblown in the middle of our screen, right? If we get too tall, no, other direction. Let's say we get way, way tall. Can I get, no. Let's say we say that's like 3,000, right? We're going to end up in a situation where our curve is so far out that we're going to be missing our pieces. That's where we need to count for the width, especially on something narrow. Otherwise, we end up in this kind of weird situation, right? Where our curve is so far out that we no longer can see it on the screen. So what we essentially want to do is calculate based on three points, 1, 2, and 3, or in this case, or even 3, what arc or what the size of our circle needs to be based on an arbitrary arc. Because that's not, this isn't necessarily the diameter, because we have to account for this distance. So we would need to calculate geometrically if we had a line here, right? If we were trying to, because we need to back we need to back our arc up so that, and the reason I need this arc is to know, well, the question is, do I need the arc? Am I overcomplicating it? And do I actually need the arc? Because if I do, so if for every list item, if I were to take, let's do it for something different. If I have my list items, right? And if I do, let's say 1 rem, 2 rem, 1 rem, 2 rem, I may be overcomplicating this. Let's say I do something like that. I have something that poses as an arc over. It may not be 1 rem. We will have to figure out how to get that value. But right, we have something that vaguely might work. It's not quite right because that's more of a point than it is an arc. Because we need to be, and that's where figuring out if the bed size is fixed, you can divide the heights by that side and you will know how many fit. Now, maybe treat it like a pagination or sliding window over the array. Yeah, that's kind of my thought. That's where I think that's where I'm going. So if we're saying times size wouldn't necessarily do it because we're still operating off the, because if I do a times size, because I actually want this one. It's an incremental path with a there it is. It's a dumb triangle problem. What I don't know is the height. Yeah, sure, not helpful. Thanks. Can we have the actual geometry? I'm about to go go get my book from like 1902 that has all of the math for this. Let's see what this. So it is in fact an arch problem. Alright, don't load, that's fine too. Yeah, I don't care about the volume. That just gives me the length. Measured in degrees in the arc length. That doesn't give me the point. Actually, no. It is like watching some try and resize floor plans about a week before go live. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Um no, actually, we might be able to do this because we know we have 9 planets. We know we have 360. We know the radius. I'm an idiot. I have a simpler solution to this. Because we know the size of our square, so we know the radius. We know we can do a CSS has a we can rotate. So if we assume everybody is, let's say, here, then it's a matter of up and over, right? By X amount and X amount, based on the fact that there is a certain width and a certain height. Ta-da bloody da. I'm making this way too complicated. Okay, so if by going by that theory, we know that our size. All right, we might actually not need JavaScript for this. It'd be really cool if I could do this without JavaScript. That's the goal, by the way, for those who were wondering. I did set up some JavaScript, but for those who do not know, the only thing it is doing, for those who missed it, is console logging crap at the moment, just to make sure that the file worked and that we had stuff. But so far nothing. So let's say we put the circles, we put our planets, our allies, nav li, at a known point, right? We put them at 0, 0 in the top of our box, right? Because we have a box, it's the nav, which we already gave a position relative. So if I give them a position absolute of 0, 0, top 0, left 0, that should put them all at the top left. Why are they not 100% on top of each other? That is very interesting. They should literally be 100% on top of each other. Did I not? Because the UL also needs to be relative, I guess. No. Why are we not? Oh, because I gave them, because we still have the margins. Because if I nuke this, now we should be, yeah. We have all our planets stacked at the top. So we know that our planets are, yeah, it is padding. So we are margin in this case. We know that our planets are exactly, exactumly. What did we say our planet size was? 10ch. I'm going to make that a variable to make it easier for calculations later. It is always a padding. Totally it is always padding. So we're going to say that our planet is equal to, did we say 9ch? I think we ended up at 9ch. 10ch. 10ch. All right. So that is our planet size. So now we have, this is where this is going to come into play, except for instead of a whole lot of margin, we're going to do something else. The first one stays put where it's at. The first one needs nothing. The second one is going to go, so we have 360 degrees, which essentially what we're going to want to do is to align, let me make, this is just to think this through. We have 9 planets to distribute around 360 degrees, right? So 360 divided by 9 planets is equal to, I don't know, give me a calculator. Shoot. I could do this in my head. If it wasn't, you know, the end of the day and I wasn't tired. 360 divided by 9 is 40. Okay. So we know that each of them is going to be at 40 degrees. So if it's 40 degrees, so we end up with a triangle that is going to be radius, 40 degrees radius, right? So we know, so 40 by 40, so 40 by 40 means that we have square root of no. Yeah, because it's 40, 40. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared, right? So 40 squared plus 40 squared. 40 squared. Oh, I do have a squared. Plus 40 squared is equal to 32,000. 32,000. So now we want the square root of 3,200. 3,200 is roughly, I forgot how much it is, like having to fill out the yearly MVP contribution. I did that yesterday, or like, no, last week, and I grouped them this year. I don't know if they're gonna ding me for it or what, but like for my stream, I literally made that as one entry with like all the information for both here on YouTube, the whole kit and caboodle, and like even for my blog, I did one entry where it's like, here's where you find my blog, here's, you know, how many articles I wrote, and I quit itemizing a lot of things and started doing them as bulk. I don't know if they're gonna hate me for it or be like, oh, thank God we have less things to sift through, but oh, that's how I'm handling it anyway. Cool. All right, so we know that from here to here is basically a distance of 56. And does that help me at all? Maybe. Basically, because here, that's going to be 40. Is that helpful? Because we're going to want to go, because now I need to figure out to get here, right? I need to figure out how much I need to go down and how much I need to go over, right? And that would be to the right and down till you get halfway around. Actually, till I get full way around. So it's over, and it's the X and the Y, because half of them would be visible and half of them would be not, and then you rotate round and round and round and you evenly distribute, right? So it'd be, hence where that 40, that 56.56 or whatever, that gets me the diagonal. So if that gives me the diagonal, I know that I'm that much. Would it be though? If I do, because I know, where did I get my 40? Oh, 360 divided by 9. This is flawed. That's my, because that's my angle. That's my angle. This is flawed. Hold on. Because if that's my angle, and I need to figure out opposite over I know my angle. I need this is dumb. I need a piece of paper is what I need because I need to draw it. I need a I know the angle's 40 and I know my radius is going to be half of what we're calling the side. So I have my radius. So adjacent opposite over adjacent is the tangent. So, and that gets you the angle. So I need the cotan. Is it cotan? It's the cotangent, isn't it? Use the inverse tangent function, tan. Right. Yeah. Because which I think is now a function in CSS. Arctan. What's the difference between arct and tan? We're gonna end up on like cotan 1 over tan x and arctan is tan negative 1 over 1 over tan x. What is the difference between these? The cotan cot x is the reciprocal, arctan is the principal inverse. Sure. Not helpful. I don't care about the notation. I want to know what the difference between the two is. Yeah, I think so. Well, let's try it because it should be, and I think they're actually CSS. Okay, so cosine is available. That doesn't help me. Tan. How about tangents? Because it's, I mean, at the end of the day, we're doing tan things. Ho ho! Oh, A tan, A tan 2, and tan. Is that actually in CSS though? That returns the inverse tangent of a number. I don't know. The function contains a single calculation, returns the number of radian represented as an angle between 90 and 90. Woohoo! There it is, my friends. A tan 2. Trigonometry that returns the inverse tangent of two values between infinity and... Yeah, I don't need two values. The function accepts two argument and returns a number of radians representing the angle between... Maybe we do want this one. That returns the inverse tangent of two values. The function accepts two arguments and returns the number of radians representing an angle between... Is this what we want? No, we have the angle. Never mind. That returns a tangent of a number which is the value between the function contains a single calculation and interpreted the result of the argument as radians. Yeah, that's just tangent. That gives me the angle. So I want... Maybe... Maybe we could have Mermaid draw me a picture. Yeah, we might need a picture. So maybe. So if we say, let's try this, because the tangent... I don't remember this. Gets... I have... Why were we going down this rabbit hole? I think it's time for more coffee. I seriously think it's time for more coffee. Let's take a quick break. I'm gonna go find some coffee, and we're gonna come back to this because this is like... This is bugging me now. 2 minutes and more coffee, and we'll be back. Because my coffee cup is empty, and there's not... This math ain't happening without any coffee, so... We will be right back very shortly. And we're back with the next best thing to graph paper. So let's see. We have a line, right? And basically we know that our angle for our first one is going to be, we know that this angle, no, I don't want you there. Thanks for trying to be helpful without being helpful. Actually, we can take this out of the context of the circle, really. But we know that our angle needs to be right. We know that this angle is 30 degrees. No, 40 degrees. Because we did the 360 divided by our number. So we know that this is 40 degrees. We know that the radius, right? So if we go to here and we go to here, sure, whatever. We know that our radius here is going to be, or is, I should say, we know that that's half of our side, right? So it's half of 0.5 of our side. So we know what that measurement is. And we know what that measurement is on both of those, because that's our radius. So now what we need to do is figure it out. What is the diff between this point and that point, right? So if we calculate this distance, right? If we calculate the distance from here to here, we end up with, the key though is we are starting essentially here, right? We're starting at this point. So we know that that is 0, 0, essentially. We know that this point right here is 0, 0. So if we know this distance, does that help? Not particularly. Because we need to know how far down we've gone. We know it's an isosceles triangle. That helps. Because a triangle, by definition, maybe that helps, maybe that doesn't. We know that this is 0.5 side in terms of points. Dumb old Euclidean geometry. With a little bit of trig. Because, yeah, basically. Well, that gives us, this gives us this distance, but it doesn't give us the rise over run, essentially, which is it doesn't give us the x versus y. It gives us, because that would give us this distance, which is what I was trying to, that's what I was going for earlier, but this distance does not tell us where this point lies. It just tells us how long this is without much for how far down do you need to go, or how far over. What we need to figure out is the right, because even if I have that value, it does not tell me where to go, and that's where the problem lies. I do know. Hold on. Is it 180 or 360 in a triangle? Total angles of a triangle is 180. Okay. So if this is 40, then it's 180 minus 40 divided by 2. So that gives us those angles. (180 minus 40 divided by 2). That gives us 70. So we know that those two angles are both 70 deg. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but so if we're going there's got to be a formula for this. Calculating points on a circle on a grid. Maybe. Compass-free plotting. We'll start by looking at the equation of a circle where x and y are pretty standard, but there are other might not be familiar. H and k together at the center of the circle point, and r is the radius. So if we have a circle with a center at the point 2, 3, and a radius of 5, our equations look like this. You simply plug in the values for h and k and then square the radius for the right side of the equation. Be careful when h, k are negative though, for instance. And we substitute and deal with subtractive negatives. Yeah. For two negatives, yeah, we know. When the center of the circle is a point, also known as the origin, our equation gets simpler. Y exclude because r square simple. Okay. All right, so if x squared plus y squared equals r squared. Okay, we can do something with that. Because in this case, x squared, that makes no sense. It's only one. Hold on, let's go back to that. X squared plus y squared equals r squared. Yeah, but you'd have to know the x or the y, which we know neither. X squared, because even if we start at the origin, right? Circle equations. What's our total? Yeah. This is what we need. But we don't know this value. We do know this value. We know our radius. But we don't know x and y. So to figure out we know this. But we don't know our rise and we don't know our run. But we do know this angle. So if we know this and that, can we calculate that? Because essentially, because they're going off the radius, right? If we do that and that, oh, I remember this very ridiculous function. R. So we end up in a situation where we have this. But I don't know H, and I don't know. We do know H, but we don't know R. We don't know Y. Okay. Draw a straight line between the first and the second touch points on the curve, and that line is the length of c squared on the right triangle. Yeah, yeah. Right, which if in this case it'd be like in terms of our CSS, it'd end up being something along the lines of calc c squared in this case would be in this case would be, where's our right? We don't have a right angle. A squared plus b squared equals c squared requires a right angle triangle, which we don't have, but this would give us a right angle triangle from here to, no, just give me a line, dude. No, it wants to do that. If we go from here to here, roughly speaking, now we have a right triangle, or from here to somewhere. That gives us a right triangle. So that gives us, but that's no longer 70, that's not 70 degrees anymore, but that's 90. So we know this, and we know this. We can figure this one out. Which doesn't give me much. Or does it? If I rotate all of this, right? We essentially have the drawing that's over there, which is fine. And that gives us our point here. Okay. So in that case, we're back to this thing though. So we end up with x plus 2 or x minus 2. Why are they doing minus 2? For the example of the equation of a circle with a center of 2, 5 and a radius of 7 would be x minus 2 plus y minus 5 equals 7 squared. So we would end up with x minus 0 plus y minus 0. Actually, we're not at 0, 0. We're at 0. Let's make it simple, and we can always subtract 0.5 to everything for the height. Let's make it simple. Or the 0.5 side to the side. Let's call the center 0, 0. For good measure. Just to make the math easier. So you end up with x minus 0 plus and this is what we want. So we have x minus h squared I don't really have a, let's do this guy. Where's the caret on this thing? 2 minus y minus k, also 2, equals our radius, which in our case is 0.5 side, squared. So what ends up, because we're going to assume 0, 0, we get x2 minus y2. I think that's where you were going earlier and I didn't catch it. And if that is where you were going, I'm sorry it took me this long to get to here. Equals 0.5 equals that basically. So that doesn't get us very far. That doesn't get us very far. It's determining if the point line's inside or outside of the circle. That's not helpful. Inside, no. Calculate the first point in a circle. Given the radius r and the angle t and the radians in the circle center true, you can calculate the coordinates of the point of the zone and follow this pseudocode. You'll have to adapt it to your language. R cos length r and the angle t. That might work. At a point at an angle theta, the circle whose center is 0, 0 and whose radius is r plus r cos theta. Now choose theta, the value evenly spaced at 0 and 2pi. Yeah. Well, that took entirely too long for me to come up with something. Well, let's try this. This isn't dumb. And we have cosine and sine, and we have, if we do our And we know our start. So if we, okay. Maybe this will work. If we take number 2 and we decide to translate, transform, translate, we're going to translate X and Y both, right? So our X is going to end up being R in radian. So 30 degrees, no, we said 40 degrees in radians. 40 degs in radians is 0.6. Okay, so we're going to do calc. It's going to be 40 times pi. I'm just going to call it 0.69 or 0.7. Calc 0.7 times, no, that's not what I want, thanks, times cosine of P, which is in this case going to be no, that's the R is the radius and T is the angle. Okay, so that's our angle. That makes sense. Our radius is, I don't know if I can put a var in here. Our radius is is var side divided by 2 times the cosine of 7 plus h. We don't have a 7, so translate, and then our translate y is going to be the same thing but with sine instead of cosine. What did that do to our layout? Somewhere in here we have a layout. Where did our pretty go? I'm going to, we're going to remove all of these. I do need to have to keep the first child because it is a second child. Let's see where we're at. They're still on top of each other. Why? Does it not take a comma? I thought it took a comma. Did the calc not do the calcy thing? It only takes one comma. Okay. Okay. So now this might just work. This may actually just work because it's actually on the circle as it should be. Okay, so if we keep going with this, and now we do the same thing for number 2, except this time we want, we know the angle is gonna be double that, right? We want to go, we don't want to go here, we want to keep going, right? So our angle is going to be times 2. Nope. That did not do the trick. Why? Because 40, 80, okay, so if I do Can I do degs in here? If I do 40 deg, just dumbly, or and same here. And I do, instead of doing 40, do 80, right? Why wouldn't that work? Because it thinks the middle is the middle. Okay, so if we keep go, I have. So if I were to keep going, if I keep going with this for each of these, these ones twos, so 120. Yeah, it's not going to show because it's off here in theory. Eventually, we should come back to the beginning. If I do that with 0, I've got some kind of, oh, I need a, missing a star. If I do that with 0, does my circle move? It does move. Okay. Because our center point is not in the right spot. So in order to do that, we need to move the center. But this is fine because this is working, and this is working actually really well. So let's lay those out, and then we can move our center point. We're getting somewhere. Miracles. 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 So I need this transform here. We're gonna go, so plus another 40. So that's 60. Protein superset geometry on the butterfly. There we go. There we go. So it'd be 200. I mean, but unfortunately, at this point, I've vindicated my math teachers that always told me that we were going to need this shit one day. So to all my math teachers out there who I told I'm never going to need this ever in real life, I'm sorry. And then 240 plus another 60, or plus another 40 is 280. And in theory, that should get us back to 360 because 280 plus another 40 is 320. My math is wrong. 4, 8. Oh, because I skipped one. That's why. That's where we're wrong. 6. So that becomes 200. It's actually not the first time I've had to use some trig in real life, but it's just still funny when I think back about it. 8. That gets us to 320, and that does get us back to 360. Okay, so now we need to move our center, right? Because we're here, and what we need is to move that center to here. So to move that center there, we need to position the individual nav items, which is the nav. So at the top, instead of being 0, would be, the top would be 50% of center, so 50% of side. So calc 0.5 side. At some point, I'm going to have to just make a variable for radius, I think, but for now. And then same for left. Except that one's going to be negative. Okay. I feel like we've gone too far. Why? So if I don't position absolute these, if I don't give them a spot, we're top, right? And I do give them a top and I bring them down. Does that get us? That gets us. Aha. Aha, aha, aha. Neptune, Pluto, Mercury, Venus, Earth. How did Mercury end up here? So first one ended up here based on our rotation. So that's odd. But that has to do with the translate then, I guess. But we're getting somewhere. So now we have to account. This is all fun and good. But if I get out of this mode, what happens if we responsiveness this? My guess is it's not going to be awesome. This works by some minor miracle. Oh, that's so pretty! Dude, that's actually really pretty. Completely unusable, but incredibly pretty. We did a spirograph. Look at this. Spirograph. Spirograph. Woohoo! Woohoo! I gotta blow this off so y'all can see better, because this is freaking awesome. So if I do like a, like look at this spirograph. Woohoo! I'm way too amused by this. This amuses me. But it proves that we've managed to build something, although functionally questionable, responsive to some extent. That's gonna need some more work. A lot more work, but we're getting somewhere. We're definitely getting somewhere. It's something that would work in a UI that has a min height and a min width of some sort. But you know, we're at least getting to something usable. You need to account for the sides of the. You need to account for the sides of the bead. Yeah. Yeah, we do. We do. This kind of amuses me though. Woohoo! Okay. And it's so pretty and so perfect. Okay. We do need to. All right, I can hide this for a second. Our alignment, because one thing that I do notice is that Mercury is here, and Mercury should, in theory, be our first doodad, and why it's rotated, actually makes sense because we're starting at 0, which would be here. So nobody's at the top. So we want to basically rotate everything back because we moved our center here, which is fine, but 0 being here. Like watching your lock dance while floor plans spin. Yep. 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 Is Mercury in retrograde? um, yeah, actually forward, yeah, forward grade. Yeah, it's too far forward. So is there like what's the correlator retrograde? Is it forward grade? I don't know. Um, the inverse of retrograde. Yeah. Okay. So what we need to do is first let's account for we're not actually protograde. Thank you, X. Let's leave it to you to know. We need to account for the size of our planets because as we can see they're not actually aligned on our circle correctly. Let's align our planets correctly. So we're doing the transform for our X and our Y, but now we also need to account for going up and over by 50% of their size. So we do have a planet height and width, right? So we want to do minus the var planet divided by 2. And same here to get our planets aligned. Let's align our planets, shall we? Planets align, planets align. Let's align the planets. This would be so much easier in SAS where I could just do it as a formula. Actually, CSS formulas are coming, but I think they are currently still under flag. Let's see. Now I'm curious. CSS formula. 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 No calcs. I thought they were coming out with the formula. Use math functions. Formula? CSS formula. There it is. CSS. We want the W3 thing. That formula tutorial, sure. Not really what I was looking for. Units, calc, min, new. That formula? I guess not. I guess not. I thought so. I guess not. It's not a thing. I guess it's just a SAS thing. Flags maybe. There's calc. What other formulas is there? Calc. Yeah. CSS functions and mixin module. Aha. Yes. Custom functions. Non-normative. Let's see. When is this draft? What's the latest version? March 10th. This version. Last published versions. Document not found. Okay, so this is the first version. So this is in its infancy. But, so keep an eye out. But at functions looks like it's getting at least proposed as part of the spec, which would be super freaky cool. So now it makes me wonder if so once you get this done, you need an Easter egg to put on Mercury and retrograde. That would be that would be fitting considering tomorrow's April 1st. Okay. So I'll have to read this because this is really interesting that this is actually would be coming to, oh, look at this. This is super awesome. Function. So you make it a custom property that takes a parameter and it comes out. That is going to be dope. All right, let's see. Let's see what its availability is. Can I use function? Can I use function? Yeah, no. At function. 0 targets. Let's see. Flags. All right, this is a mute point because I'm not gonna booger up this. Anyway, this is super cool. It's being proposed. I'm super excited. I'm so excited. I need more coffee. No, I don't. But that's okay. I just realized what time it was. Yeah, definitely don't need more coffee. All right, we're back to putting Mercury back where it belongs. Retrograde or otherwise. Who knows? Ding, ding, ding. Ding, 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 ding. 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 Okay, so now that our planets are actually on their path, actually we now need to get Mercury. Holy crap, I've never heard you say no more coffee. You feeling okay? No, I desperately need sleep, and I've been compensating with the coffee, and I think Bullhealth would agree that there's a upper limit to the ability to do that before it has consequences on not only those around me, not only to myself, but those around me. Okay, so we have, after many tangents, and oh no, we didn't actually use tangents, we used cosine and sine. So I was on the wrong tangent when I thought I was going to be using tangent to do this. Cool. Yay me. So we can get rid of that because we figured out that. We haven't figured out though is how to get Mercury to be correctly positioned boop at the top. And so in order for us to essentially not start, so see we're starting at 0 deg, which would be here. What we want to do is essentially start at negative 90, right? So if we start at negative 90, does that put Mercury on top? Does that retrograde Mercury? It does put Mercury where it belongs. Okay, so, but we want essentially, yes, it does put Mercury where it belongs. Cool, because Mercury should be on top. However, we kind of want Mercury here because we will kind of want to start here, right? Because eventually that's going to be overflow off the page. So we essentially want it here. So we probably want to start more at like negative 45. So if you put Mercury in, that's a little much. Maybe negative 20? No, we want to go more. Negative, how about 66? That's going to make the math hard. Let's do 60. I don't want to deal with the math. That puts Mercury right above Pluto. I think we can go up a little more. Let's do negative 40. That would make the math kind of nice. That puts it new. We want to go 60. Yes. Yeah, that's perfect. So if we start at negative 60, we want to go 40 every time. So that's 20. 20 plus 40 is 60. 60 plus 40 is 100. We're basically minus 20 everything. Whatever makes sense to people's brains. That's 180. No. Yeah, 140. Yeah, C squared T 40, 80. Yeah. So that would be plus 40 would be 220. So that'd be 260. And C, that would be 300. And now everybody, who's misaligned? Somebody's misaligned. Why is somebody misaligned? We've got two peoples on top of each other. We have, okay, negative 60. Oh, negative 60 minus 20. I can math. So that becomes 20, not 60. So we got to do this over again. So that becomes 60. That becomes 100. Everything's shifted by 1. That becomes 140. That becomes 180. That becomes 220. I can do, and that becomes 260. Hey, now, yes, this works. This works beautifully. This works beautifully. Okay. When am I back to get yelled at about another random ad being thrown at me in the randomness of this? I don't know. Apparently it ran without me noticing at some point. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I think we're good. Okay. So now that we figured this part out, which is awesome, we need to account for the fact that not all our circles are going to fit. And that is going to affect essentially our translates. And that's where I think that the beautiful CSS, I think that's maybe where the JavaScript aspect of it or the CSS aspect of it might have to come off. So let's deal with the rotation around our circle, because quite frankly, like we can deal with that later. Okay, let's try now. Let's deal with the rotation of our planets across or along our arc. Because realistically, like I can make the arc is kind of fugly, and I can make it disappear, right? Like boop, bye bye arc, and now we have plenty planets, right? But now we have pretty arc. I'm gonna dial the arc down just to here in terms of our, because that's kind of aggressive though. Let's make it gray, not tray, gray. All right. We have light gray, light blue, ew, light something, light pink. Why not? Why not? Or maybe light. I'm squirreling. It's fine. Light pink is fine. All right. So if we want to make this rotate, we would want a click and drag to basically act as a scroll. So the first thing we would want to do is the overflow of the, like, we don't want to see these guys, right? These guys that are out in La La Land need to go away. So let's get rid of those. And I think the easiest way to do that is probably to put an overflow hidden on our UL. So if I do an overflow hidden, they should, no, I figured they would go away. Is it because it's a translate? Where is our UL? Our UL is here. It should have hidden our extra doodads. These doodads should have gone away. Interesting. Very interesting. So because I used a translate, I didn't realize translate didn't abide by overflow rules. I thought it did. Because they're absoluted? Mm-hmm. No difference. I mean, obviously, body's gonna. Interesting. Interesting. Why would translate? Is translate not hidden from overflow? If I add position, absolute position or position fixed to the HTML and body, it fixes the issue. This isn't what we're... It's not helpful. I thought overflow hidden word. I thought overflow did actually affect. I thought overflow worked on this. So because our UL is here, like this is our UL, right? So and this is our nav. So our nav definitely is overflown. So our nav overflow hidden. Okay, so it works here. So why didn't it not work here? Well, damned if I know. Maybe it didn't refresh. Nope, not what I meant to do. Not what I meant to do either. Thanks, Visual Studio Code. That's obnoxious. Come back here. There we go. Of course that terminal's probably dead now. Well, yes, no. There we go. Okay, we're back. And we were back to having no overflow. Overflow hidden. Didn't we just watch it work? Oh, I need to put it on that nav. That's where it belongs. There we go. Now it works. So now that we've hidden the overflow, we're inside our container, right? And if I resize this, we're in a situation where we're compacted, but we're doing okay. Cool. What happens if instead of just, let me give these a background. So if I change this to background, I want to see what the overlay does on each of them. Background color var border. Cool. If we go down that road and I make these smaller, yeah, they eventually basically kind of win over each other and all right. Okay. Next bit though is still making this thing spin, right? We still want to get this thing to spin. And so in order to get this thing to spin, we need to go roundy, roundy, round. How are we gonna go roundy, round we go? We could do a drag. Basically, we want to do an on scroll or on drag for this thing to go basically rotate through its elements, and basically we'll have to probably use a Bezier curve in order to get it to go roundy round. In order for the animation to work. But I think that what we can do is, let's say we do a scroll. Let's say we do an on scroll, right? So if I do an on scroll on the nav, and so now we go and do a handle scroll, right? And we want the event. But I think the problem with what I just did is that because, right, because we don't actually scroll, because I didn't overflow, and so there's nothing to scroll, so it wouldn't scroll. So I need to catch a mouse scroll without necessarily an element. Mouse scroll events is what I need to capture. A wheel event, that's what we need, is a wheel event. So mouse wheel, this event replaces the non-standard deprecated mouse wheel event. Add event listener wheel. Okay. We do, oh, we said we were going to do the drag, so we'll be good on that. So if I do a wheel, yeah, wheel. So on wheel, I think would be what would happen here. On mouse wheel. So what happens here if I do an on mouse wheel? Now we get the scrolling. And so let's figure out what the event says, because a direction would be nice, right? Did you have a good time at Summit? Hey, Taylor and Code. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the chat. I did. I learned so much about redacted totes. I get it. I did not go to Summit. Obviously. Event is undefined. Great. Event is undefined. Why is event undefined? I'm doing the don't think I need, I mean, event would mean nothing in this context. I guess it would mean something in this context. Okay, so we know if I scroll, okay, let's clean this up. If I scroll up, we're getting a bubble, compress, control key, capability, scrolling, does that scroll, timestamp, type wheel, delta, negative. Okay. Now if I scroll down, What's the wheel delta? Wheel delta positive. Okay, so we have wheel delta y, right, that we can go by, and if I go up, wheel delta, yeah. So if I go down, it's positive, and if I go up, it's negative. I would have been pretty upset if you had just told me you were there. Sure enough, there was some really cool stuff, right? Yeah, I think maybe I would have gone out and come and found you. Maybe, just a thought. um, mm. But I may be trying to think of when the next time we're gonna run by each other, or Cincy, maybe, I would assume. I did get to hear your voice while I was there. My voice? How did you get to hear my voice while you were there? Yeah, at this point, probably Cincy, yeah. DNR. The frick? You and I are gonna have to chat. I don't know. I'm confused now. I'm very confused. You'll have to ping me. All right. Okay. Scroll log. Okay, we said if I scroll up. No, I lost my train of thought. Scroll up. If I scroll up, the delta y is negative. Wheel delta y. Oh, .NET Rocks. Oh, .NET Rocks. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did do .NET Rocks. That was a fun episode. I hope it was as fun for people to listen to than it was for me to actually do, because that was really entertaining. But you were so, I know, I was so proud of myself. I got them to cuss this time. Did they bleep it out or cut it out? Because I did actually get I got them to cuss at one point, which is funny. Because I know one episode they bleeped me, and this time I'm such a good influence on people. Right, scroll down's positive. Up is negative, down is positive. Up is negative, down is positive. Before I forget again. Uh, okay. I only made, that's true. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I only made fun of JavaScript, CSS, the web, or maybe it was just the power of, or maybe it was just the power of editing. I'm sure the power of editing had some to do with it. No, I think part of it is they got me on a technical role, and I tend to stay a lot better behaved on a technical role. Okay, so we're scrolling on scroll wheel. I basically want to invert. Now the value, does the value increase over time as I keep scrolling, or does it just stay 120? Delta y 120, delta y 120. It just stays. It just stays 120 because that's the increment of my wheel. Okay, so I'm gonna say, let's try without having to do blocks, but we'll go from there. So if I do if event delta y, that's what, wheel delta y, greater than 0. That means we're greater than or equal to 0. That means we're going that means we're going down. And that means we want to start shuffling. We essentially want to shuffle the array, right? And kind of swap the we can either shuffle the array or we can move the elements in terms of their translates. I think that moving the elements in terms of their translates probably makes more sense because we don't want to change the focus order of the HTML. That would be confusing on a screen reader, I would assume. So I think we would rather change the translate, because we can keep adding and subtracting to their translate. Because if we think about this, if we look at the translate, right, it is literally a calc. What we don't know, and we know what the starting number is, right? We know that we're starting with a point of, we're starting at -60 deg, right? So we know that our starting point, starting angle for the first planet is -60 deg. And so if we take that into consideration, we can do our start. And instead of this as being on scroll, I'm going to keep the variable up here. We actually may not need this on load function. We'll figure that out later. I'm going to do a let current deg, or yeah, current angle. And that's going to equal to -60, right? Because that's where our starting is here. And so now, this one, this one. Okay. So now, we're going to go ahead and increase the translate. We're basically going to change this transform for each of the LIs. So we do need these LIs that we had figured out here, like this list items that we had figured out up here earlier. And we do need, CSS has scroll events now, don't they? We may be able to do this with CSS. That's an on scroll. Thanks. Super helpful. That's JavaScript, not CSS, my friend. Scroll behavior. Yeah, that's a tutorial. Scroll behavior, scroll margin, scroll box, scroll margin, scroll inline, scroll margin, scroll padding, scroll snap, scroll timeline. Scroll timeline is used to define a named scroll progress on which progress through by scrolling a scrollable element between top and bottom, left to right. Scroll timeline is a set of scroller that will be provided in the timeline. The starting scroll. Okay. The starting scroll position was 0% of progress. If 0, oh, that's the timeline. Yeah, I've used that before. It's actually pretty cool. Where did I use that? I used that somewhere. I know I used that somewhere before. It was in a demo. Somewhere I have a demo with that. I don't remember where. Oh, it's that the yeah, yeah. But you actually have to have the scroll, which we've canned the scroll in lieu of being able to, yeah, we've scanned the scroll, so that's not going to work for us. So that's not going to help. Okay, so we can't do that with CSS because it's the but no, it's in the course I made for Manning that has a bunch of the new CSS stuff in it, including Exposed Online, which is kind of cool. Okay. Yeah, you can find that martine.dev publications is where you would find that. Okay. So we're going to increment the translate for every li. So we do need this, but I don't necessarily want to go ahead and recalculate that every time. I can do that once. That's fine. And so what we're going to do, and the good news about actually keeping them in the same order and changing the translate instead of changing the changing changing the order is I have consistency as who's first. And I don't have to play on who's first and what's on second and who's on third. Or however that joke goes. Okay, so if I take my list of my list items, and I do list items that for each item, and I do want the index in this case. And what we're going to do is that item is going to, the current index, the first thing we're going to do is plus a certain amount, right? That amount is to be determined, but it's going to be basically the current angle is going to get a plus equals some kind of modifier. Let's start with maybe rotate it by like 5 degrees. We'll see where that goes. We can play that by ear as we go. And so now what we're going to do is that for each of those items, we're going to take we're going to take the item dot style dot styles or style dot, is it dot style? Element dot style or styles. I very rarely do this. That's not helpful. CSS element dot style. Or JavaScript, I guess. There we go. Element dot style equal. Sure. Can we set it though? Or is it read only? Once the property is made of one word, it remains high. It says CSS okay. Style equals the longhand property word. Parse it instead. This property is read only, meaning it is not possible to assign CSS style declarations. It is read only. Okay, so you have to use the style. So to set the style, I think I need to do set attribute probably. Set a style on element using JS. Let's double check that. Pure JS. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Good old fashioned dot. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we can just do that. That works. So we're gonna do style dot translate equals transform, sorry. Transform And then we're going to take our translate. That becomes, because we're passing, it's a string at this point. So we're going to do that. Why? Why are we angry about this? We shouldn't be angry about this. This is coloring funny. Okay. And then this negative 60, right, becomes, do we do, no, it's just going to become plus current angle because we already have the starting point. Actually, we could do this as a modifier. No, because not all of them would be 60. And then I don't have to, if I do this, no, I do need to track. I need to track the index because I need to multiply by time the index. Yeah. So I need the current angle multiplied by the index. The thing is, this falls apart if there's a negative involved because it's the current angle plus 40 times the index. That's what it is. Right. Because that's your starting point and we're rotating 40 every time. That makes it work with the negative. Cool. And that, the rest can stay. Times the index, which is actually New? Why we no likey? What did I do? Oh, yeah. Current angle. What did I do? There we go. No. The heck? Times I. There we go. That's correct. And the index means the first one gets a 0 because that works. Cool. Right. Why are we yelling? Nav is not defined. Why is nav not defined? Because it's defined up here. And that is outside of our context. Yoinks, yoinks, yoinks. So now that it is not, okay. And actually, this doesn't actually need to happen. This can happen either way. It's just going to be, the current angle is going to include, is going to be, we can simplify this. Equals the event wheel delay, right? If it's greater than 0, we're going to plus 5. Yay, so current angle plus 5. And then otherwise it's going to be current angle minus 5. Right, we're going to go the opposite direction. And now we don't even need to do this bit at all. And that keeps it clean because the behavior is the same. It's just whether you're incrementing one direction or the other. So we're getting the scroll, but we're not moving. We should be moving. Why are we not moving? So if I inspect this dude, this planet that I've arbitrarily decided was a dude, let's inspect Earth. No, we don't want to inspect Earth. Let's inspect Venus. 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 I'm your Venus. Alright, where's Venus? There's Venus. Venus does have the styles.css but does not seem to have the styles being applied to them. Why? I should be able to do that. So if I did, that should do. I don't think we need any more of that. No, that's fine. We don't need to keep that. Should be just able to add a translate on the fly like that. CSS, JavaScript. Actually, add translate using JS. Yeah, div.style.transform. That's what we're doing. The item dot style dot transform, and it's not getting. Let's start the item. Make sure we're actually getting the right item. This is gonna be real noisy. Super helpful. Beautiful. I'm a genius. I console log the word item. And it did exactly what I asked. Okay. So it is getting that. And we're doing it on the LI. And that is in fact the LI. But it's not getting its style applied. So that is legitimate. So now if I go to the element itself, it is not getting an element.style. Why? Interesting. So if I get those post, if I get these every time it's was completely inefficient. But let's find out what happens. Does that change the behavior? Doesn't seem to. It is now getting its transform. Okay, no, that's the Anila. That's from the style. That's not getting an element.style stuff. Why? We're finding the item. The handle scroll is happening. Something's a miss. Something, and the highlighting is weird, which is also kind of odd. Maybe, okay, so this works. Like, this is, that's legit. So if I do item.style.background, so transform. We could do a translate directly. That could be interesting. Let's try that. And then we just get rid of this. And that. I mean, transform should have worked, but who knows? Okay, now at least it's getting its style. Cool. It's not moving anything. Because they're not calculating. And I think the issue is, well, it knows what the bars are. Translate calc side divided 250, 235, 240. Why aren't we moving? Because it's still a dot style. Translate. That should work. Let's do transform, which is what we had. And then translate, which is essentially what we have here. There's no reason that shouldn't work as function, but okay. But now, oh, there we go. We have movement. We have rotating planets. And they're actually, because I'm rotating their degree of rotation, they're following the circle beautifully. Look at that. We have rotation. So now we can do a click and drag to like push them up and push them down, right? But so we have right now it's just on scroll, or on the scroll wheel movement. Sweet. Sweet. That works. That's pretty exciting. It is, however, almost 11:30 here. So I think, I mean, after that is just a matter of do the same thing on click and drag. We've solved the mystery of, and I can fairly effectively. Now, if it gets too small, I mean, there's a minimum limit of this working, but it's, I mean, before you get there. And then you can potentially, then it's just a matter of adjusting your radius based on, because it's after that it's a radius game. So how you decide to make your circle and where on the height and width of your, and even your offset by that matter, because at this point, let's say we decide we don't want this to take up more than X% of the screen. That's pretty simple math to say, okay, take my circle, back it up like, you know, however much, and go from there. So, ta-da! We have rotating circles. That wasn't so bad. I mean, other than the figuring out this little bit. So I guess the trick, if we think about it carefully, the trick was figuring this out. And figuring out that this transform function was going to place them on the circle correctly and around our rotating piece correctly. So it was this little bit where we can calc our side divided by 2, so our radius essentially, multiplied by the sine and cosine of the like degree of rotation that we want. And then we take out half, we reduce by half the planet so that our planet falls on the line in the center. So, ta-da! We did it! We have rotating circles. And quite frankly, the only piece we have that's JavaScript per se essentially ended up being that scroll interaction in order to rotate it, right? And to make it, to be able to handle that scroll into view. But there you go. And so if we wanted to do a drag, we do a drag event, and then on drop, you know, you look at your diff in order to figure out, okay, how far did you go? What percentage of, and you can basically base it on percentage or something like that. Or you can just base it on, you know, each drag equals no matter how big the drag. You can, you know, that depends on how you want the interaction to happen. But we have a rotation planet. I might have to make a like a GIF, like a, what are they, the GitHub thingies? I might put this on CodePen or something. What do we think? Do we like CodePen? Has the advantage of you being able to see it in action versus like what are the GitHub thingies? The gists aren't exactly, don't have, because it'd be easy for me to put all of this in just one HTML file, right? But then you don't have the demo with it. So maybe in CodePen it might be more interesting. So anywho, there you go. Rotating nav. So I think part of it is there's only so far in terms of, yes, you can make this responsive. Yes, it will work. How far you need to go into the responsiveness will kind of depend on your specific needs. I went to put the line in the back because that was bugging me. It's kind of going to depend on your specific needs. But there you go. Cool. Well, thank you all for joining. We'll see you all same time, same place next week. If you want to find me on social media and get notified of when I'm going live and all those sorts of things, like and follow, and welcome, and Redfire0411, thank you for the follow. If you are still around, I'm so sorry I didn't see it till now. And yeah, so like and follow me on martine.dev. That's where you'll find all the links to all of my socials. I will type it in the chat. But that is where you will find all of the things. And I hope to see you all again soon and to chat with everybody again soon. Have a great one, everybody.